Alright, so Formula 1 is a sport founded on the idea of B teams. Said no one ever. Williams insisted they weren't a Mercedes B team, Ferrari's B team were faster than them, and Red Bull's B team was AlphaTauri. Or should I say, BetaTauri. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about the latter, because, well, you asked for it. So here you go. The Red Bull team is obviously one of the best teams on the grid, having won 4 world championships and 64 races. They made their debut in 2005, having previously sponsored a multitude of different teams, such as Sauber and... yeah, okay, maybe it was just Sauber. At first, they were the clowns of the grid, often hosting parties in their motorhome and rarely finishing higher than 7th place. However, they quickly established themselves as proper championship contenders. And also, they got a few points in 2006. Speaking of 2006, this absolute shocker of a year was the year in which Red Bull decided that they weren't just content with finishing out of the points with 2 cars. Oh no. They wanted to do it with 4. And so the Toro Rosso team was founded, by virtue of Mr. Red Bull buying out the Minardi team and promising to continue its legacy of, So after having acquired one of the worst teams in F1 history, it was only up from here for the team. So long as they didn't outperform the evil overlord that is Red Bull. And so the AlphaTauri Bull legacy was formed, so far never having finished higher than 6th in the Constructors' Championship, but often proving to be a fairly solid midfield team, even winning a few races. Oh yeah, and they won a race before the main team did. Suck on that, Marco. Red Bull have always used them as a sort of F1.5 for their junior drivers, and so far the team has brought us talent such as Sebastian Vettel, Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz, Danny Kvyat, Jaime Alguersuari. It's kind of the trend for Toro Rosso to use second-hand parts from its big brother team. But recently they've become more and more independent of Adrian Newey's handiwork and have instead opted to make their own parts. That's all well and good when it's coming out of Captain Matischitz's pockets, however any other team would probably be left financially crippled after just a few seasons of this. Not to mention there aren't just the Red Bull first and second seats to worry about, there are the third and fourth as well. But should this always be the case? Well, let me do my best to answer the question, can AlphaTauri ever be more than just a B team?
Yeah, I pull up in an Escalade, I can hear what you say. Shawty so bad, I pull up on my worst days. I can never mistake, I under from a Mercedes. Telling me to pull her, now she don't know why I leg shake. SB's looking clean in the Jeep, goddamn big chain.
So to start things off, let's have a look at the 2020 AlphaTauri car, or the AT01 for those of you who speak in binary code. Compared to the 2020 Red Bull, the AlphaTauri was very much a B team. It was, on average, 0.7 seconds per lap slower than its big brother, and scored just 1/3 of the points. Had Pierre Gasly not taken the shock win at Monza, the Red Bull would have been even further ahead, but as it stands, it only got 1 more win than its junior team. However, as you may have seen recently, Max Verstappen's wonderful specimen of a father suggested that the Red Bull was actually slower than Ferrari. Obviously, everyone in the F1 world was quick to criticize, but he might have a point. Okay, hear me out here. The Red Bull is obviously designed completely around our Lord and Saviour Max Verstappen, and the team will happily bow down to his every need. As we already know, Verstappen has a very different driving style to anyone else on the grid, and I mean, it would make sense if the Red Bull was actually slower than Verstappen makes it look, especially given the way in which his clearly very talented teammates have performed in the exact same car. So, assuming that Red Bull were indeed slower than Ferrari, then actually both teams were indeed the exact same pace, give or take. Although, since when do people actually believe the garbage that comes out of Jos Verstappen's mouth? So let's assume that Jos was completely off his face on paracetamol when he said that. This clearly means that AlphaTauri is a B team, right? Well, yes. You see, the definition of a B team, at least for me, is a team that has some junior drivers of the larger team driving for it. Check. A team which is at least partly owned by the other team. Check. And a team which uses the same engines as the larger team. Check. So then that automatically means that AlphaTauri is a B team in my eyes, and at the moment I'd say that's true. With Red Bull Jr. Yuki Tsunoda joining AlphaTauri next year, probably to get trained up before becoming Max Verstappen's next victim in the main team, all signs are pointing to the fact that AlphaTauri won't be splitting from Red Bull anytime soon. But will it ever get that privilege? Well, there's only been one occasion in the team's history where Toro Rosso has beaten Red Bull, and that was in 2008, thanks to both teams running basically the same car, but with Toro Rosso having the privilege of Ferrari engines versus the Renault-powered Red Bull. Instead of continuing the form it had and staying ahead of Red Bull, Toro Rosso magically slipped right down to being the worst placed constructor in 2009, while Red Bull finished second. I'm not saying there was any foul play here, but that seems a bit suspicious to me. So if AlphaTauri somehow build a car that's much faster than Red Bull's one, then we probably won't see it at play. The big bosses at Red Bull could well order AlphaTauri to somehow make it worse, so that Red Bull will remain the top team. Hell, being a Red Bull Junior team must be even worse than being one of its drivers. So why? Why bother earning less in the Constructors' Championship to make sure that you seem better than one of your own brands? Well, to be honest, I have no idea. Obviously, Red Bull are making plenty of money and can probably afford to make a few losses in F1, but it just makes no sense to intentionally slow down your other team just so that you look better than them. So let's not go down that route, eh? So with 2020 being a breakout year for AlphaTauri, in that they took over 100 points in their first win since 2008, could this be the opportunity they need to not just become a Red Bull Junior team, but a Red Bull second team? Well, to an extent, it's already happening. According to Gary Anderson, the 2020 AlphaTauri wasn't just a Red Bull clone, which could be telling us that they might one day be on equal terms to Red Bull in F1. And I mean, there are a decent few reasons as to why they should do this, but simultaneously there are also a few reasons as to why they shouldn't. So let's start off with the reasons why they should be more than just a B team to Red Bull. Firstly, and arguably most importantly for Commander Mateschitz, it'll be more publicity. Think about it, if both Red Bull teams are fighting for the title, that says a lot about how good the brand is. For instance, in 2020 there were only 2 non-Mercedes poles in the whole year, and one of them was taken by their 2019 car. That's mad for publicity. If people see that Red Bull's closest competitors are themselves, then their opinions of the brand will most likely improve. As well as this, people have subconscious reactions to things they see. So while they might not instantly go to buy a Red Bull after having seen a race, their knowledge of Red Bull in F1 might sway their decision next time they want to go and buy an energy drink. So if there are 2 Red Bull teams, surely that means the brand will get double the time on TV. And as everyone who's ever been cancelled on the internet will say, all publicity is good publicity. Unless you're Nikita Mazepin. So with both their drinks and clothes brands on the front of the grid, Sir Mateschitz can sit back and enjoy another of the benefits of F1 dominance. Money. It's no secret that by doing well in F1 you get money. I know. Crazy, right? I don't think I really need to explain why money is good, because I have a feeling that if you're old enough to log onto this website, then you probably know what money is, and why Red Bull want more of it. As I said in my previous video, money can buy happiness. So to any people who say that money's the worst thing to ever happen to you, you're spending it wrong. And finally, if they launch their junior drivers into a top car, then Red Bull can fulfill their dream of breaking their own records for youngest world champion and youngest race winners, seeing as Max Verstappen rudely decided to get older before they could make a championship-worthy car. Alright, so those are basically the main 3 reasons as to why AlphaTauri should be a B team. So let's move on to why it shouldn't. Firstly, it'll be more expensive to start with. Yes, I've already mentioned how King Mateschitz doesn't exactly have issues with money, but even so, if he just flaunts the lot on attempting to win the World Championship with 2 separate teams, that's going to make a pretty big dent in the budget for the next time they want to go skiing with an F1 car. Obviously, if he's prepared to fork out the money, then fine. I'm not complaining, but for me it just doesn't seem worth it. All in the name of selling a few more overpriced jumpers with Red Bull written on the front. Why? As well as this, there's a reason that Red Bull wanted a second team, and it's not just to help fill Imperial Lord Mateschitz's pockets with the FIA's money. They wanted to have a kind of halfway house between their top F1 team and their F2 drivers. As I said, both Ferrari and Mercedes are doing this at the moment, with Antonio Giovinazzi, Mick Schumacher and George Russell, so it's not exactly a unique concept. For a smaller team, such as McLaren or Williams, they can't really afford to run more than 2 F1 drivers at once, but if they have the money in their pockets, then why shouldn't Red Bull? And finally, Red Bull just might not want the stress of having to give team orders between their teams. I mean, what if it ends up coming down to the final race for the championship, with Pierre Gasly and Max Verstappen battling it out on the glorious racetrack that is Yas Marina? What if Yuki Tsunoda is in the way of Verstappen, but behind Gasly? Does Tsunoda let Verstappen through at the expense of his teammate, but simultaneously not having to face an angry Helmut Marko at the end of the race? Or does Tsunoda drive for his own team and race Verstappen? So many questions. Like, would you really want to put up with that if you were working for Red Bull? It'd just get too messy. So it's time for me to answer the biggest question that literally nobody cares about. Should AlphaTauri become more than just a B team? No. Wow, talk about an anticlimax. But seriously, it would just be too messy with both teams fighting for the championship, so it's best for Red Bull to avoid that. Although, given the way that Red Bull usually deal with public opinions, I wouldn't be at all surprised if AlphaTauri goes and wins the championship in a few years' time, just to prove us all wrong. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the situation, and while it's unlikely that Red Bull are going to use this video as a guide on what to do with AlphaTauri, I frankly don't give a fuck. So yeah, thank you guys as always for watching, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you all later. Cheers guys.
I ain't desperate, got a death wish, Shawty wake up every morning, got his Annie and her lettuce for breakfast. Now I gotta flex this, I don't need no hoe, but I love it when they jealous. I ain't desperate, got a death wish, Shawty wake up every morning, got his Annie and her lettuce for breakfast.